Hi, thank you for joining us again today on Belen's podcast. The reason that I have this podcast is because I want to share information with the community. What happens when we have a criminal case and all the other areas of somebody's life that can be affected. An individual who's charged with a crime might be a son, a daughter, maybe he or she is a father, the mother of children, and maybe they weren't even born in the United States. So all those intricacies come into play. Today, we're going to meet and discuss the repercussions with immigration law and family law when they intersect with a criminal case. We have Javier today. Javier, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. He is a great colleague. He is working in the immigration field, and he's a pro in the family field as well. So he's going to give us a wealth of information.
Thank you, Belen. Thank you for inviting me. I am attorney Francisco Javier Sobampo. I go by Javier. I practice in the area of family law, and I do immigration as well as the primary areas of law. I'm happy to be here today and contribute whatever I can to this podcast, and hopefully I have information that is useful.
Thank you. Thank you. So the reason that I asked you to come today so we could talk about this is because a lot of times you and I are helping the same client. And sometimes those clients have more than one problem. So without giving names or giving specifics, I want to talk about, let's start with family law and the impact that a criminal case has. Because a lot of people, they think that misdemeanors are not a big deal. And sometimes there is a family argument, a dispute, let's say a misdemeanor assault, disorderly conduct, but there are domestic violence offenses because there was a family member involved, let's say two spouses. So can you give us a little bit of information of what happens when they're fighting for custody? And let's say one of the spouses is charged with a domestic violence crime.
Okay, well, you do the criminal part. You've been doing that for a long time, so you understand that there is a criminal charge that when the people involved have a certain familial relationship, a close relationship, it puts it in the domestic violence arena. So someone who is, a couple of friends can be one of them can be charged, may be charged with assault, simple assault. But if those people have a relationship, a familial relationship, whether they're boyfriend and girlfriend or husband and wife, or even family members, then you have an aggravating factor, which is the domestic violence part of it. So in the family world, the family law world, that comes into play when the parties have children that are part of a custody dispute. Why? Because Arizona law 25403 sets forth that the court is going to act and issue orders regarding custody, considering the best interest of the child.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about that, because that's a legal term, and sometimes it's hard to understand for the public what that means.
Well, the easiest way to put it is there is no question that a father and a mother have the highest rights as it relates to their children. But that right is not absolute. That right can be taken from them by the courts if the court finds that the relationship with both or one of them is not good for the child. And that is hard for some parents to understand.
Yes.
In many cultures, it's not even understood because they're your children. How can someone remove them from you or take them from you? But that is, in fact, possible under Arizona law. So under Arizona law, a person that is not even a family member can end up with the custody of your children if the court finds that your behavior as a parent or your ability to parent or co-parent is not there. And if the court determines that the children be best in the care of someone else, then those rights as a parent can be taken from you.
Yeah, that is always so hard. I do have a lot of clients who are parents, and unfortunately, they end up having the criminal case, and that triggers, let's say, DCS to get involved, right? You're nodding your head. So, DCS is a big part when there's a domestic violence charge. And then, more often than not, then that ends up in a custody situation in family court.
Correct.
And so why does DCS get involved?
The role of DCS is to protect the child. The determination that DCS has to make in order to get involved is that the child has been subject or victim of some kind of abuse. And abuse doesn't have to be physical. It could be neglect. It could be abandonment. It could be emotional,
Mental.
psychological. So if DCS gets involved, it's because somehow that information got to them. Who? Sometimes it's the school,
Yeah.
school personnel, sometimes it's the neighbors, sometimes it's family members, and sometimes it's the child.
They need somebody to talk
They
to.
need someone to talk to. They found out something online that there's an 800 number that they can call, and that gets routed to DCS. So that's when they get involved. When DCS gets involved, now you, as a parent, you got bigger problems because now you have to defend against the state agency.
And so I find that difficult when I'm representing a client because when DCS gets involved, then the client has to have a balance between the court, their criminal case, and not losing their children. And DCS doesn't like us criminal defense attorneys or any attorneys to be around. But my experience is when I try to assist them in one way or another, DCS does not let us participate. So that is very difficult. And as a defense attorney, I always don't want my client to talk. But as a parent, they have to also cooperate or their child could be taken away, right?
Correct. And DCS has, for lack of a better word, they have two tiers of investigations. They have the lower tier and then the higher tier when the parent is possibly, it could possibly face criminal charges or is being accused of serious criminal charges. In those cases, DCS does not really care for the defense of an attorney like us because they basically take it as you're already admitting guilt by getting defense counsel.
Really?
Right. It is that higher level of investigation that gives DCS the right to investigate your child or question your child without the parent's consent.
So what you're saying is DCS automatically assumes that you might be guilty because you have a defense attorney?
I wouldn't go that far, but going back to the two different levels of investigations, there's I guess, the run-of-the-mill allegation investigation, kind of the lower level. But when the allegations involve serious criminal activity, then the second level kicks in, and those people are investigators. So they are they have a higher authority. They have the ability to question your children, for example, without the parent being present. They have certain other levels of authority that it's conveyed to them that is not conveyed to the lower level investigation, something about possible neglect or the child was left by themselves by a parent who went to the store, that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm talking about. And in the second level, the parent is potentially facing some kind of serious criminal charges.
Yeah.
And because of that, those investigators are a little bit more aggressive, I guess I would say, a little bit more focused, and they take things to the next level. So someone like you who calls them and says, I am the attorney for father or mother, and I am telling them not to speak to you based on my recommendation, legal recommendation, they don't take that
They
well.
don't. You're absolutely right. They don't. They will not take it, because I've tried in the past. Now, I do agree with you. Sometimes when there are very serious charges, even though the children have nothing to do with the charges, let's say, for example, there is an accusation of a sex crime with a different person outside of the marriage, or maybe a minor that is not a family member, that's when DCS gets very aggressive, and they're going to remove the children often.
Okay.
And another situation I've seen is when they ask the person who's accused of a crime to leave the marital home, the family home. Have you seen that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. The most recent cases that I've had involved a mother involved in the sale of, or allegations of the sale of fentanyl.
From the home?
Excluded from the home. Uh, at that point, that mother will lose all of her rights to see the children, at least on a temporary basis, and someone else will jump in there with maybe family members and so forth. But if a family member allows the excluded parent to have contact with the children,
Oh,
then it becomes even more of a problem, because DCS and the courts themselves want that contact to be excluded temporarily until we can figure it out. So it becomes more of a serious problem when a parent, a grandmother, a grandfather allows the excluded parent to see the children because they believe,
yeah.
they want to support the familial relationship. So yes, I see that quite a bit. And on that same vein, uh, the people that are watching your podcast need to understand that the courts ultimately will look at what is best for the children.
Yes.
And domestic violence or drug use or allegations of sexual misconduct by one parent, even though it is not directed to their children, is still a concern, because it involves, one of the factors is the mental, physical, and psychological
Safety.
safety of the children, and the condition of the parent. If the parent has a problem, we don't know, but if the parent has a problem that makes them prone to sexual misconduct, maybe now, in the court's eyes, is not directed to one of the children,
Yeah.
but the children grow up, and the situation may get worse later. And that is the mentality of DCS and of the courts as they handle these kinds of cases.
Thank you for sharing that. You mentioned two things that I think is important that we give our viewers some information. The difference between the temporary orders and the final orders. Because when somebody does get charged with a crime, and then there are interventions by family court or DCS, they don't have to be permanent, right?
Correct. When a child gets removed, or a parent is ordered not to have contact with the child because of an ongoing investigation, the primary focus and concern of the state is the safety of the child, right? Now, in the process, uh, we might find out that parents are not guilty, or a parent or an accused parent is not guilty.
Right.
And at that point, the goal becomes the reunification of the child to the parent. And DCS is also instrumental and helpful in that, but obviously it follows a process. The orders that are done there's two types of orders. There's the court orders that will become in place when the case makes it to the court. And then there's the immediate orders or processes that DCS puts in place by virtue of the authority given to them by statute. So they are able to remove your child even without a court order.
But you mentioned that Arizona focuses on reunification, right? So that's the model that we have here, that they're going to work towards helping parents coming back with their children. Is that right?
Yes, parents are human. Parents make mistakes. Sometimes the accusations are meritless and baseless. And at that point, we need to get rid of those accusations quickly. In other cases, there is, in fact, something that is of concern that the parent needs to address. There's some deficiency, there's something that needs to be addressed. So the goal of DCS initially is to work, let's use drugs as an example.
Yeah.
So a parent is accused of using drugs and as a result, neglecting the children. Well, it is investigated. Immediately the children get removed to prevent them from potential further harm. And then the investigation begins. And in the investigation process, it's found that the parent does have some issues there. Then the goal of DCS becomes, can we provide this person resources and things that they can do to help them resolve that, and in the process start working to reunify them with their children. I don't believe the state of Arizona wants to keep everybody's children.
No.
There's no way. We don't have enough assets for that, resources. But in some cases, there is no option. And in some cases, the children cannot and should not be returned to the parents.
I understand. Yeah. Now, tell me what happens, and you represent a lot of fathers, is that right?
Yes.
So what happens when a man, for example, gets charged with a crime and goes to jail? Do they automatically lose their parental rights?
Excuse me. No. The answer is no.
Okay.
The parental rights is, the word implies, it's a right. And in order for you to be stripped of it, it must be done by the court with proper jurisdiction and after due process. However, if you are detained, depending on how long you are detained, depending on what the reasons you are detained, it will have consequences. If a father is in prison, not jail,
Right.
prison, then we're talking about more than 6 months. And in that particular case, one of the statutes that kicks in is the statute that terminates the father's parental rights. Arizona law provides that any parent that abandons the child, meaning no contact,
Yes.
no financial assistance, etc., for more than 6 months, the other parent can terminate that parent's rights. That sometimes kicks in by a mother, in this case, that says he's not coming out in so many years, and I cannot be waiting for father to come back and do his job as a parent. So they get another relationship, they want to marry, they want the child to be adopted. So that statute can kick in.
But the father always has the opportunity to appear in that proceeding and say, hey, wait a minute, I might be in prison for X amount of time, but I'm coming out and I want to be involved with my child.
Yes, that is the part where it doesn't automatically happen. To be honest, a person can be, and I don't know, we talked about fathers, but let me just tell you that this is an equal opportunity problem.
Yes.
So there's mothers in the same or worse situation. But you are right in that there's still the issue of due process. And someone can be a terrible husband, a terrible boyfriend, a terrible person, and a great father.
Yes.
That happens, and that could happen. And in those cases, you will see that the individual affected can fight the case, even within the confines of jail. Not a very good, not a very high success rate, but it does happen.
Yes. Yes. It's just a tough situation, not only for the person charged with a crime, but also the family that are on the outs, and then they have to raise their children and then balance that relationship with their loved ones if they're incarcerated. But then let's add another component to that, because you do a lot of immigration representation, and now we're in some tough times. So now, let's say somebody's charged with a crime that is domestic violence and they're not a United States citizen. What happens then?
Well, to say that we are in difficult times right now, it's an understatement. Uh, yes, that does happen. And the intersection of family law, immigration, and criminal law is pretty chaotic right now. Why? Because if an individual, a parent, is not a United States citizen, especially if they don't have status.
And when you say status, can you tell our audience what do you mean by that?
Oh, yes. Well, a parent could be a U.S. citizen, either born or naturalized, or it could be a permanent resident, legal permanent resident that has resided here forever under the what they call the green card, which is renewable every 10 years. Or they may be here and have no status, which means that they crossed possibly the border legally with a tourist visa and they overstayed it.
Okay.
So they have no status anymore.
Yeah.
And no status means
it
that
expired.
it expired, the time that the visa expired and their permit to be here expired. That's one. Two, they've entered the United States without inspection. So they cross walking, cross the river, whatever, and they're here and they haven't adjusted, they have no status. Under our current situation that we're living in right now, people with no status have to be extremely careful, because being accused of a crime when you have no status can create a plethora of problems for you.
Yes.
And even if the charges are later removed, someone who's accused of, let's say, assault, that person will be arrested. Under Arizona law, the state, let's say someone gets arrested for assault, for fighting, that's a misdemeanor, potentially, and it goes to the lower courts, right? City of Phoenix or the justice courts. That judge will likely let the defendant out on bond or on its own recognizance, so no bond. But the individual is not going to be freed because immigration is going to pick him up and take him, and they're going to start removal proceedings.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because a lot of people don't understand how the intersection. So if somebody gets arrested, I just want to make sure that I explain that when somebody gets arrested and they get booked into the jails, inside the jails, we do have immigration officers that are checking people's status. And if people don't have the status, they're going to put what's called a hold. So even if you get bonded out, like you mentioned, or you get released on your word, on your own recognizance that you're going to come back to court, you do get snatched by the federal system that will pull you because they have a hold on you. So I think that's very important to share. So that's so tough when somebody gets charged with a crime. They're dealing with DCS, and on top of that, they're dealing with their own immigration.
Yes, that's the number of problems that somebody without status can have. And that's why if I were to give someone any advice, I would say that under these conditions we have right now, parents have to be the best parents possible. As a citizen or as a person, you must obey the law in all respects to try not to be entangled in that web. Because once you do get pulled in, the likelihood is that you're going to get out is not very likely right now under many conditions. And if you do manage to get out, it's going to be an extremely expensive endeavor.
Yeah.
You have the bond for immigration. You have the criminal case, the attorney for the criminal case. You have the
Family.
family. This you still have to support. You have fines in the state case, and you have the bond and the attorney fees on the other side. It becomes extremely unaffordable for many people.
So if somebody had a family case, whether DCS was involved or not, and an immigration case, you could help them in both of those situations.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Um, I wish we had a magic solution for all these problems. It's just so tough that there's so many layers that people have to deal with. Um, and what happens when, because I was not born in the United States, I've been here for 30 years though. What happens when we come from another country and in our country of birth, it's okay to like spank your kids or throw maybe a chancla at them? That's a shoe. What?
Sandal.
Yes, Sandal.
Sandal.
So what happens when it's okay culturally? Is that okay to do here in the United States?
As you just put it, uh, in my case, I share the cultural component. In my family, when I was growing up, it was normal to do the spanking thing, even a little bit more. My input to some of these individuals that come to me is, unfortunately, the law does not consider the cultural component. And here, at least under Arizona law, a lot of those activities are prohibited. Physical punishment of the child for purposes of discipline. It's not acceptable in its...
None at all.
None at all. Well, there is a little sliver in the law that allows for some kind of punishment. The problem is that it's such subjective that when presented, let's say a child, the law allows you to spank a child, not bare hand, with your hand, no belt, no nothing, no instrument, let's say.
Yes.
All right, well, the problem is that if that child calls the police or DCS, or even the other parent, to spite one of the parents, does a report, now you have to prove that there was an abuse, because the line between abuse and discipline can be blurred very easily, particularly in the heat of the moment. And just like we get clients, one remembers one thing, the other one remembers a different thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens. So to be safe, I would say stay clear of getting into that gray area. And that involves no physical discipline.
So the best would be to come up with a different parenting plan. That even though if we grew up with, pulling an ear, spanking, or throwing a shoe at kids, that does not happen here, at least in Arizona, because we're focusing on Arizona law, because it could be criminal charges, DCS can get involved, and if somebody is not a U.S. citizen, it doesn't matter what country you're from, you can get put in proceedings.
That is
Right.
correct. That's
Okay.
absolutely correct.
So much to consider. It really is so much to consider. Well, I'm very, very grateful that you came today, that you're able to share so much. If you are looking for representation for family or for immigration or both, I do highly recommend that you reach out to the offices of Javier Sobampo. I call him Javier. He does have another first name, but he goes by his middle name. We're going to put the contact information below in the comments. And if you have any questions, always let us know as well in the comments. Again, I'm very grateful that you came today to share so much wisdom. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Belen.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your podcast, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.